So we went live on Facebook and did 450K in less than 90 days. People wanted more.
Why do you think that is?
Because you...
What it is, Brad Lee back again with another episode of Dropping Bombs today in the studio, folks. As always, I never let you down. I got another badass for you, Shaan Rais. What's happening, Shaan?
Man, I'm just happy to be here, Brad. Thank you for having me.
Shaan, for those of you that don't know Shaan, now you do. Shaan is an expert at building and creating personal brand. And I want to get deep into personal branding to help a lot of the entrepreneurs that are listening, number one, realize how important it is, and then how to do it a little bit. You want to talk about that?
Let's do it. How
they can leverage a little bit of effort into, I would say, millions if you do it right. It's made me, when I say millions, it sounds so, but several million.
Yep. Several million.
I bet you if I measured it over the last X amount of time, it's probably in the 8 figures or going near it. And I've only had one for about 5-6 years. So if someone's wondering, is building a personal brand worth it? Well, I'm here to tell you, regardless of what this fella says, yes, it is. But I already know your opinion. Now I want the world to hear. Who is Shaan Rais?
Okay, great. So I tell everybody this. This is my story. I'm just a kid from Harlem who God chose to show his favor and mercy through. I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. You don't really need to be a historian to know what took place during that time.
What?
They called it the war on drugs, but we felt like it was the war on us. That's
when you say us,
yeah,
black people.
100%.
Okay. And it probably was in some areas.
That's exactly
back
how
in
it
those
felt.
Days, especially.
A lot of the people that I grew up with, dead or in jail for life. Very few of us came through. I believe that God plays chess with people. And there was a time in my life when I was really kind of bothered and bitter. And he knew that a man couldn't teach me anything. So he pushed the queen.
Ooh, I like that.
And checkmated me. My wife changed my life. I was having a conversation with her one time, and I'm telling her how I'm going to destroy her life and how we're going to live this fast thing, and it's going to crash, bang, and go up in smoke, kind of like the sign behind you. And I had an out-of-body experience, and I asked myself, are you going to write the same story that you've always written? Like, how this book ends. Like, it doesn't end good. It never ends good. And I had to rebrand. I had to change my thinking.
What was your old brand?
The one that was given to me. So a lot of times.
But I mean, what was it? Were you like freaking gangster running around?
Everybody is. Like where I grew up, you had 3 options. You could get punched in the face for a living, like Mike Tyson. I wasn't going to do that. You could be 6 feet, 7 feet, and dunk a basketball. You've seen me stand. I'm not that tall, right? Or you had the option of the street. And, that was the only options that we had. We didn't have coaches.
And you're in Harlem.
We had corners.
And you're in Harlem.
1,000%. The old Harlem. I always have to tell people the old Harlem because if you go to Harlem now, it's like Hollywood. But it wasn't always like that.
Did you grow up in New York?
Yes, definitely.
You don't still live there, though?
No, I don't.
Where do you live now?
We are in Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach. With the Queen.
Beach. Where's?
With the Queen?
Oh, yes, definitely. My wife saved my life. So, that was checkmate. Changed everything for me.
What'd she do? Just say, clean up your act?
No, it was her presence, really, and it was her brand. It was the way she lived, the way she did things, the way she talked,
Classy.
The way she moved. Classic. I had never seen that before. I'd only grown up around one thing. I had one example of what life looked like, what leadership that I understood was. So when I saw the possibility, I said, let me entertain it. And like I said, I was having this out-of-body experience, and I said that I realized that I always believed because when things got hard, I would trust. I wouldn't falter. I would never fold. I always believed that I would be okay and something bigger than me would get me through it. However, when I got through it, I went back to what I knew best. So this time I said that if you just trust me, and I'm talking to my wife, and I said, if you trust me, then I'll trust him. And I got out of the driver's seat and sat down in the passenger seat. And that was the first time in my life, Brad, that I had ever submitted.
That's good stuff, Shaan. That's good.
It's the first time in my life I ever submitted. And look at how it works, right? 5 days later, I got an email. And the email said, if you're a single parent, we've got $5,000 for you to go to college. I said, I said, is this one of those things that they call a sign? Because I don't notice emails. We don't do those things. So I'm like, I'm actually noticing it. And I thought about it a second time. And I said, is this what they call a sign? So I could sure use $5,000 at the time. I'm a single parent. We're not married yet. So qualitatively, I'm a single parent and I have children. So I said, you know what? Let me give it a shot. More than 10 years ago, we've done more than $3 million. I've written 3 books, got 3 master's degrees. I'm currently on my 3rd chapter in the first dissertation, but I've done a PhD in organizational development and change and an EdD in leadership.
Damn. That took a lot of time, though. You think it was worth it?
It was everything, man. It was everything, because when you go through a rebranding process, it takes time. It's internal. That's what people don't understand. They think a brand is external, like you could put a monkey in a suit. But when you really are trying to change your brand, it's your thinking, it's your behavior, it's your culture.
Some people might call that an act. You think that's an act or a brand?
It can be an act, but it always falls through. It's like thin ice. But the further you get in from the perimeter, the further you go, the more opportunities for you to falter and fail. And it always shows up. People always go through the ice all the time. They have meltdowns after having a few years of success.
You think a social media following and a brand is the same thing?
No, definitely not. I mean, fathers have brands. Long-term husbands have brands. Like, that's a brand. That's an official brand. Trust, belief, consistency, discipline. Those are brands. This Pop-Tart social media thing is not what branding is. People have it backwards.
Well, it's the Pop-Tart thing that made me the most money. Like, it's not because I'm a good dad. I think ultimately that is all why, your karmic retribution, as it were. I do believe if you're a good dude, good things happen. And I'm a good dude, so a lot of good shit happens. However, when people say, Brad, I want to build a brand, I understand that like a brand could mean trust, which it does. It contributes. But to me, a brand is, do people know you? And what do they think about you? And it's almost like a reputation.
It is.
So to me, a brand is like a reputation. And so what's your reputation? And it could be, well, everybody that knows me trusts me. Well, that's not going to make you rich necessarily. It could. Right person trusts you.
That's right.
But if the whole world knows you, they don't even have to trust you. You can get rich.
Definitely
Why?
can.
From that exposure. So that is almost a different thing. It's social media notoriety.
Correct.
And that's what I think people need. And how do you do that? But you're deeper than that. You're talking about how you dress, how you walk, how you talk,
how you think,
how you
live,
think,
how you behave.
So you're changing people.
Definitely.
Because if you're not changing them, you're just teaching them how to act. Well, then you're just telling people to shape up,
Yeah.
Clean it up.
Put on a nice front.
Yeah,
so a facade. No, that's not it.
Yeah, let's show up acting like this instead of like this.
The funny thing about branding is the key points to me are authenticity. We call it the MVPs, morals, values, and principles.
Morals, values, principles.
Morals, values, and principles. So we base branding on who the person really is authentically at the core. And that's the difference. Most people think they have to be like Brad or put on a white shirt, red tie like Shaan, or be like someone that they know and can recognize. They say, how can I become like this person? But real branding is intrinsic, it's authentic, and it's being the real you. So we teach brand you and not what you do.
I like that. So what's the process someone goes through? How long does it take?
Well, we do it in 120 days. We actually launch brands in 120 days to the launch stage. However, branding is eternal. It is forever. It evolves and it grows.
Live viewer says, sounds like you changed your environment first.
Well, I changed my relationship. Actually, I changed my relationship with myself.
See, I like
changed my environment later.
I like your responses, Shaan, because you know what it shows me?
What's that?
That you've really taken the time to think about it. Because that's true. It started with the relationship you had with yourself. She sparked something, but at the end of the day, dude, that's what changed first is how you viewed yourself. And that's a relationship. So then but to her point, you got out of Harlem.
But watch this.
Or were you guys in Harlem?
You can take Harlem with you, right? So you can take the monkey out of the cage, but sometimes you can't take the cage out of the monkey. So you got to change first internally, and then as you change internally, your external environment changes automatically. Economy changes, psychology changes, your location it becomes you.
Do you think it's because your perspective changes?
Of course. The way you see things changes, your lens.
Well, that's
as you get more reference points.
That is the fastest way for anyone to change, period, is change the way you look at it.
That's right.
And what you look at changes. There's a saying out there.
100%.
That's the most true statement I've ever heard. If more people understood that, there'd be more successful people in the world.
I agree.
And what's crazy is we have the free will, right? That's the gift we got. So we have free will. We can choose.
That's right.
And the choice is when people say, man, you got the power in you, and everyone's thinking that there's this magical power that needs to be released. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And it's like, that's not what it is. The power is the ability to choose.
That's right.
It's free will. I can do this or I can do that. Your power, your choice. And people go through life making terrible choices every single day, where if they just realize I got the power, that means I get to choose, not that there's this magical thing that's going to happen. You know, I always picture like I'm going to turn into a Power Ranger when I finally tap into my power. It's like, dude, you got your power right now. Your power to choose. That's the gift. That's the power. So where do you think like people miss that, hey, clean it up, act right? You got like an act right school.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. So we call it the leadership leverage, right? And it's about leveraging leadership, intrinsic leadership, the right viewpoints. Executive presence is everything. Articulation is everything.
Now, do you always wear suits wherever you go? Is that part of your brand?
So that's the brand. That's another thing, right? So when I was growing up, I didn't see it. I didn't respect it. It was a monkey suit to me. To me, it was like we didn't wear suits unless we were dead, right? Or going to court.
Or getting married.
Or getting married, which we didn't really do. That was one of those things that we didn't do. So what happened was the shift in perception, you got to see it in order to believe it. So for me now, when people see me, they see a representation of someone who can wear a suit, someone who doesn't have to dunk basketballs for a living or get punched in the face or do anything under the table, right? Everything is above the table. And we've got an education and we make millions of dollars and we don't have to conform to what society says we should be.
Come on. That's good, ain't it?
It's a huge point for me. It was really a huge point for me because I definitely didn't want to feel like a sellout or feel like I had to conform or change for someone. And when I realized that you could be authentic and wear the suit that was made for you and become a representation of leadership and advancing guidance and purpose and fulfillment and have all of those things and make money and do it the right way, it was game over for me. And it's game over for the people that I work with.
So you did it first for yourself.
Definitely.
And then that worked. And so now you're basically helping people do it for themselves.
1,000%.
More high-end people that are like right on the cusp.
Definitely.
And you help them create the whole thing, like almost invent the whole thing.
From the, what do you call it, rooter to the tutor, right? From bow to stern, because a lot of people don't understand how their 3 E's, their education, experience, and expertise translate into 3 I's: impact, income, and independence.
I like that, but I'm focused on a word that you said, education.
Yes.
I want to make sure people don't confuse that with college education.
No, it doesn't have to be at all.
It's just what's your education.
That's right.
Because I notice you're collecting degrees like they're going out of style. And probably, again, to me, it's a lot of people do that as their suit, meaning people just assume, hey, if I'm a PhD and I got an MBA and I got 6 freaking masters in such and such,
Nope.
that's going to impress the world. And in reality, much like a suit doesn't, degrees don't either. However, it shows consistency. It shows commitment. It shows discipline. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
So like if you, some people, oh, that don't mean anything. Well, maybe not in that direction. I would agree if I look that way. Yep, it's not really gonna get you much. But if you look this way, well, dude, that dude knows how to freaking finish something.
Lock in.
That dude knows how to like freaking lock in. Exactly. So again, there's value to it, but I think the biggest value of going to get a degree is the networking that you do while you're there. So how'd you get all the degrees?
I actually went online, right? So we didn't have the networking opportunities that many people may have. For me, it was core competencies, getting core competencies. So industrial and organizational psychology is the science of motivation and performance of high-level individuals within organizations. And then organizational development and change is building a business. And then leadership is how you can lead other people and lead teams. And those are all the master's degrees that I have. So, and the core competency has always been evidence-based coaching.
Well, leadership, how important is that?
Leadership is everything.
So what define leadership?
Influence. Because the first you have to influence yourself. I remember one time when I wrote my first book, The 7 Prerequisites to Success, I was looking at examples for leadership. And I saw someone speaking on a TEDx. Slightly overweight, not even slightly. And I was like, here's a guy that has some challenges.
Claims to know everything.
Yeah, leadership, right? One of the forerunners in leadership. And it's like if you follow them, then it's okay not to be able to lead yourself away from the donut shop. And I was like, that's not the definition of leadership for me, right? So
I like that. You can't even lead yourself away from the breakfast table.
You know, leadership is different. It shows up differently for different people. So that's where authenticity comes in, right? So you could be like an 8 or a 9 in a lot of areas, but leadership really is trying to move all of those integers on an integer scale to the higher level, not just 1 or 2. You could be a great speaker and a terrible father. I promise I'm not shooting.
Yeah, but that's a real statement right there. And a lot of people, they don't really understand how to. You know?
That's right.
They'll stumble their whole life. So where do you start? Someone comes down, gets you to consult them. They say, Shaan, I'm looking for a brand. Like, let's use me for an example. What do I need to polish up?
The first thing I'm going to talk to you about is your origin brand story. What happened between 0 and 7, 7 and 14, and 14 and 21?
You make them think that?
Yes, sir. Go back. Because in order to go forward, we got to go back.
Okay, 0 to 7?
Yeah, 0 to 7.
Okay, use me as the example. They can learn from you helping me.
Okay, good. So what are some core situations that took place? What had the most impact?
0 to
7.
7.
0 to 7, yep.
2 years old, I got under the sink, drank turpentine, and died. Literally and figuratively, had to be brought back somehow. But 2 years old, died. 6, again, 0 to 7, nothing really major happened.
No, something did happen. You died.
Well, yeah.
How did that happen?
I drank turpentine.
Who was there?
Nobody.
Who was supposed to be there?
Parents.
Who wasn't there?
Parents.
Why?
They were out drinking and partying and
Boom.
working and
Drop
having
that
fun.
bomb.
Why?
Drop that bomb real quick.
Why?
Because that impacts you for the rest of your life.
Well, it didn't do much
It
damage.
did. No, but it
still good.
You're still good, but it impacted you for the rest of your life. Now, with your family, are you protective?
No.
You're not protective.
My family?
Yes.
Yeah.
You are protective. You're
but family to me is like everybody in your family. Well, there's a good chunk of my family that I've already decided I don't care that we're blood related. They're not my family because of actions that they take. Now, again, people say, oh, that's sad. You should forgive them. Dude, listen, sometimes I think family is chosen.
I do.
Family doesn't mean blood, in my opinion.
100%.
Okay, blood, dude. You could be sisters to a murderer. Your son could be Jeffrey Dahmer. Does that make you anything? No. So again, blood doesn't mean family to me.
Okay, now knowing that you have your brand and just going through the origin brand story,
So
I look at your logo. I look at
the rhino.
The rhino.
That's my logo. You're not talking about that logo. You're talking about that logo.
I'm talking about the rhino. I'm thinking about the protective nature, the aggressive nature. When things happen and can challenge or confront or cause harm to those you care for. I look at the way you take care of your team. I look at the way you take care of your family. I look at the way you provide. That comes from a place of being 2 years old and left on your own and dying under the table because no one was present. You're present. You're a guardian. You're a protector.
I love the way it sounds, I gotta say.
It's origin brand.
But now,
story.
am I supposed to start saying this to people, or is it just something I need to know about myself?
You have to know it about yourself because
it's almost like you got a psychology degree too.
I do. It's industrial and organizational psychology. Now, 7 to 14.
7 to 14. Well, number one, if you read my book, I go through my whole life, but the one that stands out the most, is basically being a liar like you wouldn't believe. Like, I'd tell people my dad owned Disneyland. Mm-hmm. I remember being like 6, 7 years old telling the neighborhood kids that we were rich, even though we weren't. But I felt like, we need to be, otherwise I won't fit in. Mm. So I bullshitted them about pretty much everything. And then obviously it backfired, and then boom, I was like almost, the kid no one was allowed to play with for a couple years.
The dark side.
That's 7 to 14. But then I also watched my dad in those years start building businesses. He got a pizza parlor and a little newspaper, little local trader paper going, and we built the little crap house that we were living in into a big house. My dad and his friend Ernie. I still remember that. So it took a while, but boom, built a nice house, because we lived on a hill that had all nice houses and then our little dump. And so I always thought everybody was looking at us. This is between the ages of 7 and 14.
That's right.
So anyway, long story short, my dad was an entrepreneur during that time. So between 7 and 14, I would say all I really remember is, running around Cottage Grove, Oregon, having fun, playing in the woods. I had a decent childhood. I wasn't freaking, walking to school uphill both ways in the snow. I always tell people a joke that my dad was broke, and sometimes, during Christmas, he didn't have any money, so he'd just cut a hole in our pocket so we'd have something to play with. And then I just keep proceeding, and then some people get it and some people don't.
Yeah.
Well, I had a lady walk up one time and her lip was twitching. She was looking at me like I just killed her dog. And she goes, "Thank you very much." And I'm thinking, well, maybe I touched her with my speech. This was at the 10X event.
Okay.
Maybe I touched her with my speech or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And she's sitting there with her lip twitching, and she was pissed because I said that joke. And then she looked at my wife and she goes, "You can thank your husband for giving me a disgusting visual." And I go, "What happened?" And she goes, "When your dad cut a hole in your pocket so you'd have something to play with." Disgusting. And walked off. But that wasn't between 7 and 14. That's just side story.
That was her lens. That's where she saw it from.
Yeah. So 7 to 14, there it is. Now what?
Anxiety, uncertainty, and a need to cause permanence. A need to create reality. You saw your father through entrepreneurship create something phenomenal. So that path was.
And then I saw him lost it all too.
It took you from uncertainty and anxiety to a sense of permanence and belonging. So success was kind of bred in your DNA. You've seen it happen before. Remember, you can't do what you haven't seen done. So having seen him do it, no matter if he lost it or not, you knew he attained it, and you knew he did it through business and relationships, because you mentioned Ernie. And I think about your relationship with Justin.
Justin who?
Straub.
Jason.
Okay, so the relationship piece. and the partnership piece and the building piece, like the relationships, the
Well-
core of going from anxiety and uncertainty to permanence, relationship through business.
It sounds good. I don't know if it's true or not.
We're sitting in it.
Well, hey, again,
You and the dark side piece. So if you look at the colors behind you, there's color psychology too.
so
Yeah.
like, you know,
Bombs, harm, danger, reluctance, eerie, the blood
so
red.
it's like in my DNA.
Come on, man.
Huh?
It's authenticity.
Yeah. Well, again, I've never really thought about it. Maybe you're right. That's something to think about. So no more after that? There's no more?
14 to 21.
Well, again, 14 to 21, dude, I was a little bit of a hoodlum.
Okay.
Okay. I was a clever hoodlum, but I really had very little ethics. I was kind, if that makes sense. Like I didn't hurt and rob people, but like I was out figuring out, hey, how can I get something?
Of course.
And I would allegedly, because I don't know statutes, but I would allegedly, go to my friends and have them give me a list of things that they wanted for anything, because I knew what I was going to do with that list.
Allegedly.
It was a fulfillment list, allegedly, and so I just go around all the stores and collect them, and then go get my money from all my friends. And so let's say shoplifting was not scary to me. Interestingly enough, I knew that if I got caught, nothing would ever really happen. I was a kid. And so I wasn't afraid of the consequences. As soon as I turned 18 and I knew the consequences changed, so did my perspective on the whole matter. Boom. Didn't do that shit anymore.
That's right.
However, I would say between 14 and 21, I was left alone. I was kicked out of the house at 16 because I didn't mow the lawn. My dad, basically said, it's time for you to hit the road at 16. So at 16, I was out. And,
What that tells me is
the 21. Then I went in the Marines for a split second. Then I went to Hollywood and was almost a movie star. And, that's when I ran around, thought I was freaking cool and deserved to be famous, and was really just screwing people and robbing, and not robbing and stealing like a thug, but like, I wasn't real ethical, let's just say.
okay. So let me.
And that's why basically when people say people don't change, yes, they do change.
Of course they
And
do.
what's crazy is they need to.
Yes, they do.
If they don't change, they can just expect what they've experienced. If you're like, hey, I want a better life, I want a bigger life, well then, dude, you can't be the same person you've been, because that's the life you have. Whoever you are is where you are. Like, this future success isn't coming to the person you are today. It's waiting for for you to become the person
step into the reality.
that gets it. See what
That's
I'm
right.
saying?
Definitely.
And people don't get that. And it's like, dude, if people got that, more success in the world.
So we're looking at transformation. We're looking at going from the dark to the light. We're looking at morals, values, and principles, beliefs. We're looking at a transformation process. We're also looking at entrepreneurship. I want your listeners to know.
I was clever.
Very entrepreneurial.
I was industrious.
Industrious and entrepreneurial.
By the way, at 6 years old, here's another thing that I forgot, but it's scarred in my memories. It's not even a scar, it's a good thing. But what I did is I wanted money. My dad said, go work for it. Now I'm a little kid, 6, 7 years old. I'm not even a teenager yet. So I knock on the doors, and the guy at the end of the street, bottom of the hill, says, okay, I'll give you 25 cents for every weed you pull. And so he gave me this 5-gallon bucket. And my grandpa, he's somewhat of a green thumb. So he'd show me how to pull weeds at his house with just one finger around the bottom and snip, get the root and everything. And, there was just a little technique. So I ran out there in his yard, this dude's yard, and I just started snap, 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 snap. And I go to knock on his door, and he opens it up, dude, and I've got a bucket full of weeds. Like, he probably owes me 150, 200 maybe. Like it's full, and he owes me a quarter of weed. And I guarantee you there's 300-400 weeds in there, maybe 500. His yard was covered. So I dump it out, and he basically fires me. Wasn't happy. And the reason he wasn't happy is because he was expecting to let a kid make $5.
Yep.
And that kid went out and he forgot I was out there. And now he owes the kid $500 or whatever it was. And dude, that pissed him off.
I'm sure.
And he was like upset paying me. And then told me, don't need you. And I thought on the way home, man, what the hell? That was weird. I was told to do a good job. I was told to work hard. But in retrospect, I say, that's because it wasn't win-win. It wasn't a win-win scenario. If you want longevity, if you ask me, dude, you got to look for win-win scenarios. If it's not win-win, you're gonna lose eventually. Like if me and you do business and I keep getting the best end of the deal, eventually, dude, that business will end.
Correct.
But if we're both winning, it'll never end. And isn't that what we want, especially in business?
Of course
we want win-win scenarios. I hate when I hear people go, I cracked him over the head and got him for, it's like, dude, that customer could have been a customer your whole life, but now you cracked him over the head and you got X amount of dollars, which is exorbitant compared to what you should have done. And now you've lost all this future revenue. So it wasn't win-win. It always ends.
Another thing for your listeners, always put people over profit, value over valuation, and meaningfulness over money.
Especially the first one.
1,000% relationship over revenue. The revenue will take care of itself. The money will take care of itself as long as you're willing to be authentic and ethical. People will respect that, trust you, and the money will follow you. When you don't chase money, but you chase value, the money turns around and chases you.
So what do you think happened to me in those years?
You learned a lot of valuable principles. I come in here and I look at your number one core value, which is ethics. Why do you think that is? Those lessons followed you forever and became a part of your brand. It's what you stand for now.
Well, that's because I saw what would happen and what could happen if you didn't have any.
Now, this is the thing, Brad. Your listeners need to do the same thing. We call it a retrogressive perspective. They have to look back at what made them who they are, their core competencies, and then look at the skills that they've acquired as well. This is what they call transferable skills. Even though you were entrepreneurial and, some would have called, like, you have to use the word alleged, right? It was still entrepreneurial, and it didn't harm anybody.
Very entrepreneurial.
Very entrepreneurial. I was very entrepreneurial as well, because we didn't have weeds where I grew up.
You had weed.
We didn't. Well, listen, I got in trouble for a lot of things that are legal now.
See,
that are legal and promotable.
Well, hey,
now.
It wasn't then. Now, I would feel sorry for you, like I do the people that like got in trouble like a year ago and they got, for example, sentenced to 10 years and now it's legal. Dude, I'd be so pissed off. I'd be like, bullshit, dude, let me go.
Yeah. There was a lot of harm done for a lot of things that are recreational now.
But back on the war on drugs, bro, they were bombarding anybody.
It was like I said, it felt like it was the war on us. It felt like it was personal.
Dude, it may have been. Because again, dude, I remember when I was a kid, I was driving my buddy's Corvette too fast. I'd been drinking a little bit and I had ate the weed on me. And when I got pulled over by the highway patrol, he found the weed and I had just moved from Oregon down to Nevada, but he found the weed and the dude dumped it out on the highway and smeared it in with his boot and said, that shit's illegal here. Don't get caught with this. And I'm like, if that ain't, now I don't know if that's white privilege, but I'll tell you what, there's, angels following me in a lot of cases too. But during the window from 14 to 21, I also everyone told me to get a real job. So I went and got a job fighting forest fires. So I thought, and when I showed up, it wasn't as glamorous as I had hoped. And they gave me this big, heavy bag of water to put on my back and squirt smoldering stumps. Then I got poison oak. And then he basically said, dude, poison oak's part of the job. And I said, out of here. So I went and did a hard ass job Like I had smoke in my eyes. I got poked with sticks. I got poison oak, and that was supposed to be normal. Like, dude, that's your new normal. You want this job, you're going to get poison oak. And I just thought to myself, dude, that's got to be the most bullshit I've ever heard. So I quit, and everybody thought I was dumb because this is a job that like a lot of people wanted. When I got the job, people were like, damn, dude, you're on with the Forest Service? That's major money. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm cool. I ran around town bragging that I'm a firefighter when I was really a piss bag operator, getting poison oak. So I quit. Next day, got a job in a car dealership. Walked in a suit, smelling like cologne. I operated from that point forward with my mind and a pen because I knew the alternative is not the answer instantly.
That's right.
So I looked for sales, went in, started exceeding at sales, made more money than I would have at that job. And all I did was drove people in cars. And then on top of it, dude, they used to give what's called a demo, which means salesman got a free car to drive. Yep. And when they gave me a car, which was a Trans Am, at my age, I just get a Trans Am. Keep in mind, my parents are never going to buy me a car. They couldn't if they wanted to. And if they did, it would have been an old Ford LTD 1971 turd. So here I am in a suit.
That's right.
On a car lot. I don't owe any bills around here, but yet I got hundreds of cars to sell. People are coming in for one.
That's right.
I'm not even looking for the people.
Market, you ain't got to do nothing.
Yeah, and so all I do is test drive and do some paperwork, and boom, 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 started making tons of dough. So that happened between that window.
Nice.
I learned hard work ain't the answer.
That's right.
Okay. Smart work is the answer.
That's right.
Sales is crucial. I started learning sales at one of the best boot camps in sales there is, called the car business.
Yep.
I developed thick skin because everybody thinks car salesmen are scumbags and dirty and liars and cheats when that's not true.
Just one moment. Are you guys learning something about branding right now? Because Brad is giving you a crash course in branding and origin brand story and how you build that.
No, you are. I'm just following your direction.
Okay. But it's you though. We teach brand.
I'm telling the truth, bro.
There it is.
See, a lot of people won't tell the truth because they're worried about what everybody else thinks. That's called allodoxophobia, by the way.
It's the things they're running from that they need to run to, and it's the things that they're hiding in the closet that they need to bring out of the closet because people are afraid of what people will think, but what people crave in this world is authenticity and truth. It's the things that you're hiding because, oh my God, what will they think?
Yeah, but there's some things you probably should hide.
There doesn't have to be.
Like, don't be the guy that walks in and starts,
you don't have to
complaining about the IRS lien and the bad credit and you smack your wife and you're a freaking alcoholic.
It's perspective and there's strategy and there's language. There's perspective, strategy, and there's language. Again, we play chess. So you don't have to go into the details. But you can say, I learned a lot between this year and this year. My life was a wreck. I wasn't the most favorite guy on the block.
Turn your mess into the message.
Turn your mess into the message.
Okay, keep going, dude. I love this. So
if you haven't gone through anything, then you're not the person qualified to give any advice on anything. No one's looking to you for success.
Say that again.
If you've never failed. So the first book that I wrote, The 7 Prerequisites to Success, Pathways to Paramount Performance, the first chapter is hard times. If you haven't faced any, how are you qualified to tell me how to change my life or change my economic status?
Well, I've faced a bunch. I was homeless on the beach once. And by the way, that was between 14 and 21.
Come on. The second chapter is failure. If you haven't failed, then you don't know what winning looks like. And you're not qualified to teach me. The third chapter is acceptance. Okay, great. These things happened. I was under the sink, left alone, and I almost died. I learned the hard way. Parents weren't there. Family values.
You know that's the book title.
What?
The Hard Way.
Hard Way. Oh, yes, sir.
It's
yes,
lessons
sir.
I
Definitely.
learned the hard way so you don't have to.
That's right. It all plays a
I
part.
suggest getting it on Audible, folks.
That's right. And the 7 prerequisites to success, I suggest the same 1,000%. The fourth chapter is paradigm shift. Because after that 21 piece, something shifts, something changes. Now, for some people who are extremely hard-headed, I won't mention names, it takes a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, it did
But
take
the shift still has to take
a little
place.
bit longer.
It definitely took longer for me, but the shift has to take place. And when that paradigm shift takes place, that's when you start tapping into belief, and then faith, and then tenacity, clawing your way out of that dark place that you put yourself and allowing nothing to stand in your way. So when you say, that took a long time, to me, for 3 master's degrees, it didn't take any time at all. And nothing in business could be hard as the things that I grew up dealing with every single day. It was like a third world country.
That's perspective.
1,000%. And that was reality. So when it comes to business and clients and people being afraid of no and knocking on doors, and that's the easiest thing in the world. Overcoming resistance is the easiest thing in the world. When you look at where you came from and what you've done, so that's another thing that we learn in the right way of thinking about business.
Hey, not to interrupt again, but everybody listening is thinking see what I'm thinking, which is, dude, keep going with mine. Dude, people will come to you for this process. It's almost like therapeutic in a way. It's very cathartic.
It is. My background is counseling. So I became a coach through counseling. When I got the degrees and I started working in the inner cities of New York, I was working with an underserved population on how to restructure, how to fix their lives. And then people started coming to me. My supervisors was like, what are you doing back here? Why are you talking so loud? Why does everybody want to be on your caseload? Why is nobody coming back? Why are people getting sober? Why are they getting jobs? They're reuniting their families and they're not coming back. There was a retrogressive perspective that the Erickson model, the biopsychosocial model, said, look back and keep traumatizing people with what happened between 0 and 6 and 7 and 14. My perspective was different. No, let's look at it and then let's make corrective changes and let's use a forward-facing perspective, a future-facing perspective. And I learned later that was coaching.
Yeah.
It wasn't really counseling.
Might be your calling.
It was.
It wasn't coaching. It was a calling.
So when I went back into college for a second master's degree, I made sure that every single emphasis area was evidence-based coaching, because there's 2 kinds of coaching. There's the coaching that's given to the masses, which is more of a motivational, rah-rah, if you fall down and look up, you can get up kind of coaching. And then there's evidence-based coaching, which goes back hundreds of years in society and with specific populations getting the information that they need, the network that they need, and the real keys to unlock high performance. That's what I looked for. And when I found it, I swore to bring it back to the people.
Dang. So you got me wanting to keep going down my past, because now I'm being flooded with memories tell them about this one. So got a starring role in a movie, thought I was going to be a big movie star, lost it to the producer's son getting out of a drug rehab and gave him my role. In knowing now what happened after, it wouldn't have made me famous anyway, but I was naive and thought that it would. But it was a legit movie with legit people. And so, it was like my shot, but it was taken from me because the producer's son, who did On Golden Pond, got out of a drug rehab. And so the producer, that's who's paying for everything. So the producer tells the cast, hey, my son's taking his role. And so the writer even wrote me a new part just because everyone liked me, but nope, snatched my part from me because he had the money. And I thought to myself, that wasn't fair, but he's got the money. So I'll tell you what, I'll be famous, but let me go get rich first, so I can come back and make move and be the one paying the bills, because then nobody's doing that to me again.
That's the bomb right there.
Why? Well, I want to know what this all means. But so that happened.
That's right.
I lost a role in a big ass movie. Then I went into the Marines. Was all I wanted was honor guide. If I graduate honor guide, that's the guy in the dress blues.
That's right.
So if I graduate honor guide, I'm coming back making my grandpa happy. At the time, my girlfriend that I, thought I was going to marry, or at least wanted to. She was hotter than a pistol. But her dad didn't like me. But if I went in the Marines and I got back, he'd like me. And then I could go be a police officer, which is what I wanted to be, just because I think that it's cool as shit.
It's cool. Uh-huh.
And they always hired Marines. So I went into the Marines, go through boot camp. Sure enough, get the shot at honor guide, go all the way through, shot expert, rifle field training, tested out at the ASVAB in like top percentile. Was getting taken to special debriefings and classes because they were giving me a top secret clearance. Like I was doing well. Well, long story short, I get cut on my leg in rifle field training, and it's like a cut that big, nothing major, gets infected. It's called cellulitis. Makes you think of fat, but it's some sort of, cellulitis. It's like you're infected, which again, I could walk. There was nothing wrong, but they got their rules. So they put me in sick bay for a week. Well, my platoon was moving forward to graduate. So I'm in sick bay. I still got to do what they did. And then they told me I'm going to be there another 5 days. So now the staff sergeant comes in and says, hey, your platoon's graduating without you. And I said, and he was, trying to be a dick. And I said, okay. And he goes, so we're going to start you back at first phase. And I said,
nice.
And by the way, first phase, like all the way back, like I just got there.
That's right.
And I didn't care. Why? Well, I just get more money. Like when I get out, when I graduate, my check's bigger because they can't keep you there and not pay you more. So anyway, I'm like, so, and I kept saying, so like, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. And then he said, all I said was, and this was my mistake. I said, as long as I graduate in my dress blues, I'll be here for I'll do it 10 times or something. And that must have pissed him off or something because he said, I'm going to make sure you don't graduate in your dress blues. And so that was like a big problem. And then I got a letter from my girlfriend that found out I was messing around with some girl that turns out knew her. And so that wasn't good. No. And she said she was going to pay me back. And I'm like thinking now, like, oh my God, she's going to hump my friends. And so I didn't like it. I said, I need to make a phone call. Went to the phone to make a phone call without permission. They snatched me, brought me into this office and scared the shit out of me and basically said, we're going to put you in prison. You were absent without leave. And I'm like, I was right there. I didn't leave the base. I did something without permission. I went against a direct order. And by the way, knowing now what I know, they were just scaring me. My dumb ass didn't believe it. I thought I was heading to freaking military jail. And so, dude, ultimately the commanding officer at the time, don't even remember his name. I went in there and he said, what's the story? And basically I told him, everything. And he leaned over and he said, listen, if you want out, just refuse to train. In the morning, be respectful, refuse to train, and they'll just let you out. And I said, sir, yes, sir. And the next day, because I wanted to get home, bro.
Now, yeah,
I'm done with this military shit. And not only that, dude, I realized that I am governmental property. Like, people don't understand. The people that enlist into the military, it's cool. I admire them. I did it. Like, I think everyone should go do their duty, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, you become government property. And I didn't like that. And I knew that. So when he gave me the out, I'd already been there. I'd already aced everything. I've already shot expert. I already earned on my dress blues. In fact, I was fitted for them. I was graduating higher than what you normally graduate. Like, you graduate private or private first class. I was already Lance Corporal. Like, in other words, I killed that place. I aced it. I was getting top secret clearance. I was going to be cool. I would have been cool. And now I regret it. Why? Well, because, dude, I just wish I would have finished to see where that would have took me. Who knows? Maybe I'd have been, in charge of the FBI right now. But my point is when I look back at that time, that was between the 14 and 21. So I quit the Marines. Let's just call it like that. And so that obviously affected me somehow mentally, according to what you're saying. I can't wait to hear what that did for me. And then, so I lost the movie part. Then I quit the Marines. And so now I'm back at around 18, 19 years old. And, I'm running around, just basically selling cars and selling. But I didn't find ethics all of a sudden. I don't think I found ethics. I think it gradually changed. Like I said, when I turned 18, I quit stealing and shoplifting, which
it's never
I allegedly did. No, it was never one thing. And then until I was about 30, dude, all I cared about was getting rich, and it was all about me. Like if I sold you something, it was so I could get rich, I could make money, I could make commission. I needed money. Let's go. Let's get rich.
I'm thinking of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because the basis is food, clothing, shelter, and then relationships and belonging. And as you go up, you get to self-actualization at the top. But it's a process about how you develop. So personal development and professional development and leadership development is a real thing. Well, brand development is the same. And it's going through that same process that you develop a brand.
Yeah, but I look back at it like failures, losses.
Failures are needed to develop grit and a sense of belonging and having a story. Because if you don't have a story, then you're a one-pager, man, and nobody cares about that. You've got to have a story. You've got to have grit. You've got to have twists and turns.
Is it important for me to know it, though?
Of course it is, and it's important. It's more important
for
your audience to know it. And self-knowledge and self-actualization is the most important thing. You have to be self-aware.
Well, if you read my book,
but
I talk about, like, the first sentence is, death is the best teacher, but we can't afford its lesson, because you'll be dead. Well, I was at 2 years old. And then I always say I'm lucky. And again, that carries in the book. Like, I was lucky to get, brought back. That's what taught me not to have patience, by the way. So the whole book is from like 2 to 6 to, and it was like I said, when I was writing it, I was like, dude, this is almost cathartic. It's almost like development in a way. I think everyone should write a book, even if they don't publish it.
It's refinement. Think about refining, and refinement is a purification process.
I should write another one.
Like fasting. You should. Everybody should. And if you haven't written yours yet, then you need to. Introspection and internal perspective on yourself is better than anyone's external assessment of you.
So there's tons more that happened in 14 to 21. Tons more. I mean, dude, I could go for days about all kinds of crap that'd make you just go, whoa. But I mean, I lived, because I was out on my own, dude. At 16, I had no parental supervision, no rules, no nothing. And a 77 Camaro that was just faster than hell and cool as shit.
Yeah, I can imagine the Wraith.
Yeah, so I mean, dude, I was just cruising around being cool. I thought I was cool, and I was pretty cool, but like,
Now, when it comes to branding, we take those bullet points and we create your skeleton.
Dude, that makes me want to come down there to your event or your school or whatever it is.
In Myrtle Beach,
Your process, I should say.
People come through and like the copywriting is done, because direct response copy is no longer a thing.
So I'd leave there with a whole story.
You'd leave there with an entire presentation, your entire website.
And I would bring up this whole thing.
So we teach also to change your attire to match your desire.
This is my attire to match my desire.
Okay, great. But everybody has a different uniform. Everybody's uniform is not the same.
I know mine used to be a suit.
Based on the brand, based on the evolution.
Well, again, suit for first impressions, I think slowly are changing. In other words, when I see someone in a suit now, I'm wondering, who do you work for? Or you're about to sell me something. Why? Well, because
that's the assumption.
I always wore suits, dude. And I used to love the way I looked in suits. Like, dude, I would wear a suit on the weekend when I wasn't working. Why? Because I thought it emanated success. Especially the nicer suit, the nicer tie, the cuff links, the pocket square. Dude, I was dialed. And let me tell you something, dude. I did look sharp as hell. And women do go crazy for a sharp dressed man. But once I started making a little dough and I didn't have to wear the tie, I lost the tie. Then, time passed a little bit, styles changed a little bit, and then I lost the slacks. Like slacks, dress pants, pass. And then time went on a little more, and then I lost the sport coat. So now when I get dressed up, I do the jeans, killer white shirt, cufflinks, and a kick-ass sport coat with a pocket square. If I go to a black tie where it just flat out requires a tux, I'll get the whole entire tux on, but no bow tie. I'll leave it open. And for some reason, I have an issue wearing ties nowadays. Why do you think that is?
Because you don't like to be boxed in. You don't like to be told what to do. You don't like to be forced to do anything. You like to be your own person. And you don't like to conform. Kind of the same thing I said before. Like, you don't want conformity. And I think entrepreneurs don't conform. We create our own rules based on our origin brand story and our personal mission statement. Who are you really representing? Who are you doing it for? So for the people watching this, think of what you've been through.
Dude, everyone's going to want to do it now watching this. Your phone's going to blow up.
It's mandatory that it does. They have to do it. It's incumbent upon you. What you go through is not even for you. It's not about you. That's the first thing I had to realize. Even though my story was impacting me personally, who could it impact future-wise? It wasn't for me. Looking back, I had to look forward and say, this had nothing to do with me. It has to do with everybody who thinks that they don't have an out, that they don't have an opportunity, that they can't get away from their past, that they can't bring their past into their present and use what happened to you as something that works through you to help the next person that you introduce yourself to. Because when you step in the room, think of all the things that you bring with you. And then think of all of the people. So when you don't tell your story, what you do is you withhold other people's future and fortune when you keep it a secret.
Dang. That's good, big
It's
dog.
the truth.
That's good. See, I didn't even know, dude. You had this kind of deep understanding and knowledge. It's good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
But this is good. This is good. So
You judge the suit by its cover.
well, again, if you said, let's go somewhere, I'd wear jeans, sport coat, kick-ass shirt, and no tie, and I'd look just as sharp.
Oh, yeah.
You don't need the tie. Now, people have their preferences. I would wear a tie on 2 occasions. When I get married or when I get buried. That's it.
Nice. So I don't wear the tie all of the time. Like when I dress down, though, it's still knowing that the eyes of the world are upon me. It's not about me. When I go somewhere, it's not about me. I'm comfortable. Like I'll get a car and the car is not that important to me, but it is. It's important to those looking up to me, wondering, can I ever get it? Can I attain it? And yes, you can. And it can be legal and it can be justified and it can be ethical. And you don't have to switch or hold your body posture a certain kind of way in order to do it. You can still be authentic, still be tough as nails, still have grit, still be real, and still be comfortable when you go back to the hood.
Why would you go back to the hood?
Because you don't ever want to forget where you came from. So on 145th Street in St. Nicholas, I have what we call a $5,000 fish sandwich. When I look at my wife and I tell her, baby, I feel like some fish, she gets mad to this day because she knows we're going to get on a plane and we're going to go to Harlem.
And have a $5,000 fish sandwich?
Have a fish sandwich. Whiting. Famous fish. There before I was born.
Still there.
145th in St. Nicholas. Listen,
still
guys.
there?
Yeah, still there. Still there. Survived COVID and everything. No sitting room, standing line only. Down the block and around the corner. Listen, never, ever forget where you came from, no matter how hard it was, because that's what got you through. And that's your origin brand story. And that's what gives you authenticity.
It's good. Hey, I almost want to keep going with my life and then tell me what I'm supposed to do after I did that exercise. Cause it's kind of fun. I did it kind of when I wrote the book, but I think I stopped at around 30, maybe 35 in the book, because to me where it changed and now that's a different chapter. In other words, there was a point where now I know I'm a different person. Well, up until about 30, I was still kind of I wouldn't say dirtbag, because again, I was kind. I was generous. I was nice.
Core values.
But, well, again, I wasn't full-blown ethics yet.
You weren't polished.
Well, I just wasn't full-blown ethics. Like, I still,
there's maturity that has to take place.
I had multiple girlfriends,
there's
times.
Maturity that has to take place.
I did, my intentions weren't pure.
Understood.
Now, believe it or not, my intentions are pure. Like, in other words, I believe I am the closest thing to an angel walking the earth. I do not have dark, harmful, sinister thoughts.
Good.
Everything is gone. Now, I don't know if that's because all that happened, but what in this branding process do I do once I go back and go through my life this way? And do I keep going? To what age?
So now we go through what we call the 5W process. We've covered who you are. Now, who is your ideal client? Who do you serve? Why did you go through all of that entire process? Who is your ideal client? Who do you want to serve? Who do you feel most comfortable around?
You know what's weird about me?
What's that?
And I'm just using me. If everyone's like, dude, he doesn't let him talk. I know, but we're pretending that I'm going through this process that he's freaking goddamn near patented, and it helps people build a kick-ass reputation, brand, social media presence, the whole bit, and change your life, quite frankly.
It attracts your ideal clients to you by telling your truth, and it repels your unideal clients.
But what if you don't know who your client is? Because when someone asks me, who do you want to help? Well, number one, I want to help everybody. Well, you can't help everybody. Who do you really want to help? I always think about, I would rather help somebody making $60,000 to $100,000 get to $300,000 or $400,000 per year than someone making $300,000 or $400,000 and get them to $1 million.
Very good.
And I would rather help the $60,000 to $100,000 people, $150,000, $200,000 people, and get them to the $1 million mark, rather than $1 million person to $2 and $5 million mark. In other words, I'd rather help.
I understand completely.
The underdog more. For some reason.
Now let me help your listeners.
Well, again, I'm
gonna help you too.
I know, but I know you are. You already are. But I want you to understand, just because I want to hear you factor this in.
Okay.
I think we'll make a bigger impact in the world's overall well-being if I can help people that haven't figured it out to figure it out, because 300,000 a year and 490 is pretty much the same thing. My question is, does the 60, 80, 90, 100, $110,000 person, do they have enough money and sense to make that work? Because you could, but you have to live almost like at your mom's house and take all that money and invest it.
That's right.
And then most people learn how to make money, but they don't learn how to control their expenses, like me. So I made money, but I spent it. I'm just broke at another level, bro. And I'm still a broke dude, right? At that point, I'm making $500,000 a year, spending $500,000 a year. You're making 60 grand, saving 10. Who's better off? You were.
That's
you had
right.
more
The
money
person
than
with the
I
money.
did, and
That's
I
right.
looked like I was rich to the average person. Well, the average person, okay, is who I want to help. Why? Because if I can help the $60,000 person become a $350,000, $400,000 person, which is easy to do, that'll make a bigger impact in the world than if I helped $400,000 people become $1 million person. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
There's not much difference up there. Down here, go from 80 to 320.
Yeah,
your life changes.
Everything changes.
But going from 320 to 620, nothing really changes. You're still comfy. You got a little extra cushion is all.
You got a few more watches.
Yeah. So like, I'd rather help let's call it the blue collar, the regular Joe. I'd rather, and not to mention, it's the biggest audience. It's the biggest group of people.
My next question to you in this process.
But I also want to help these guys.
I know. So my next question to you would be, how much money do you want to make?
Me?
Yeah.
I've already made enough.
Okay, but listen, let's put you back into the place where your audience is. How much money do you want to make? And then base your ideal client avatar on that segment of the population that you favor who fits that demographic. So what do I mean? This is a problem that I had myself. As I said, when I got out of college, I'm helping the socio-economically strapped. I realized really quick that they wasn't going to give me enough money to do my first job in my life, which was to retire my wife. Now that comes from my origin brand story. My mother used to come home, sit at the dinner table. My father used to get home later. He would sit down and she would immediately go into what happened at work. And she always had male bosses. So my mother's at the table talking to my father and her son about men at work who were in power over her. And it traumatized me for him. He just eat his food humbly. But me, I'm like, my father's listening to these men's names. And she would change a job and it'd be another man at our dinner table. And she changed jobs and it'd be another man. I immediately decided my wife will never come home with another man in her mouth. So when I got married, my first job was to retire my wife. And I realized that serving the underserved population with all of my time would not give me the economic power that I needed to retire her. So my goals became higher and I realized that I had to serve a higher level population to make more money so that my family could live the life that they desired and deserved, and then I could give it away to the people that couldn't pay for it. I had the power to give it away for free to the people that couldn't pay for it. So when your 60 to 80 population can't pay for it because they really don't have it and they're strapped because of the rising costs, depending on your price points. If you're not where you need to be, you can't set the price that low. You need to set it higher. So you need to serve a higher demographic so you can then turn around and serve a lower demographic. So there's strategy.
Yeah, but you're too extreme. It doesn't have to be really expensive and free. Why don't you just get a low ticket, like a low price product?
Then volume. Where's the marketing money? If you don't have it already, see, you have it. So you're speaking from a different position than a lot of your listeners because they don't understand the marketing machine. They don't understand the value cost. They don't understand Facebook ads and all that stuff. So for them, when you want to give it all away and serve the world and help the world, because most of our people do, most of our entrepreneurs, they want to help the world and save everybody, save the whales. I get it. Listen, strategy says, if something goes on wrong on the airplane, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. That's why you create Brad calls it a kick a $sign brand. Phenomenal personal brand that attracts your ideal client to you. And when you become one of one, but not one of many, you get to charge a luxury price because you become luxury. And then when you're serving those people at that highest level, then you can give away the value to the people that need it the most, deserve it the most, and can't pay for it, and put you where you need to be.
That's charity. That's philanthropic ideology.
But that's the goal. Like dropping bombs, it's a podcast. It's for free.
It's not for free. It takes people's time, and time is not free.
Of course. Different economics.
People watching this live, it's not a free live. They might think it's free.
They might think it's economically free.
But right now they're paying with their time.
That's right.
And their time is well invested.
That's right.
By watching, if you ask me. Except if you're Elon Trombley, one of the live viewers.
Okay.
Elon Trombley. But anyway, yeah, dude, I love what you're saying. And listening to you, man, listening to your story, again, makes it like, oh, okay. So maybe I need to do that more often. You know, I don't talk about a lot of things that I've went through. Do you need to talk about them?
You don't have to talk about them, but you have to know them. And
do you help me if I come see you craft my story?
Of course. And let me tell you, one to many is more powerful than one to one. So when you have these conversations with your ideal clients one-on-one, it's tremendously transformational. But when you speak on a stage and you turn your story into your unique value proposition, the game is over.
Yeah. Well, folks, he's proof of it. By the way, if somebody wants to reach out and get this service like this, I'd almost call it a process.
Yes.
This branding process. They come to Myrtle Beach, that one.
Yeah.
Who do they call? How do they get a hold of you?
They can go to ShaanRaiS.com/book.
And that's SHAAN.
That's right.
RAIS.com.
Who
have you done it for? Do you do it for a lot of people?
We've done it for amazingly, we've done it for a lot of military leaders that have 30 years in their vertical, 20 years in their vertical, but we also help people, dentists, doctors. We've had plastic surgeons come out. We've had international people come out. You must have those requirements, the education, experience, and expertise. It's easily transferable. So I work with highly professionals, executives, and entrepreneurs who are serious about changing their lives as well as changing the lives of others. Again, that's ShaanRyeast.com/book a call, book/a/call. Or you can go to ShaanRyeast.com and just click on the link, 120-day brand, because that's how long it takes. It's a 4-month process. 1 quarter will change your entire life.
Hey, and by the way, it's SHAAN. You'll see the link below. Rais is RAIS. Your name doesn't look like it sounds.
No.
Damn it. I wanted to spit that out, and then sometimes I was going to say, I'll get back to it, I guess.
It's all right.
But, dude, I appreciate you coming out, dropping bombs, sharing the value with these good folks. The importance of a personal brand, guys. I told him earlier, it took me 20 years to make Lightspeed what it is. And with a personal brand, I've probably built 3 more things very quickly to almost the same level in a couple of years. So it's an accelerant.
It changes everything.
I can help people. I can give attention to things. So that's the social media following. You're branding the social media following is what I'm talking about. Because again, you're the one that helps people figure out who they are and get to know themselves. And you're almost doing the inner work with them.
Yes, sir. Definitely. 1,000%.
And dude, that's where it starts. And most people don't understand that. That's how I know your stuff is probably legit because I don't have to go through it. I'm just listening. I'm a pretty good judge. And it makes me want to come do it myself, even though, hey, I'm good. I know, but I want to walk back through that all that stuff I was talking about and find out, well, what does that mean? That made me like this. Oh, I understand. And then it's is there anything that I need to take from it where I just still polish up the current Brad?
Let me give your listeners just one example of how powerful it is. Before COVID, I was doing this, Fortune 500 companies, professional succession planning, leadership development, helping people move up into the C-suite and get promoted, get noticed on the job. COVID happens. They tell me I can't fly. They tell me I can't speak. I come from that background where I'm not scared of a cough. That's how I looked at COVID. I'm not afraid of a cough or a cold. So I think I'm going to figure this thing out and still be able to help people. I figured out Facebook. Went live on Facebook. Unknown, no audience, no business, no brand, nothing, no training. I go live. I figure out how to go live on Facebook. We did 450K in less than 90 days.
During COVID, when everyone was freaking.
Organically. No following, as a complete secret, best kept secret. Because I was authentic. So when you tell
it was also because you know what you're talking about.
Of course. Yes. So, but I didn't have it scripted. So that's another thing.
But you clearly didn't have imposter syndrome either, which a lot of people get and a lot of people have.
That's because they think of how other people perceive them.
That's right.
When they're living in their truth and they're living in their authenticity, there's no reason to be unconfident or feel imposter syndrome because your competence translates into your confidence.
Yee. Good one.
That's a fact.
Keep finish.
So we went live on Facebook and did 450K in less than 90 days. People wanted more. They said, Shaan, how can we get more? We did what we called a Leadership Live Deep Dive at 5 every Saturday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard. Those people said, they raised their hand. Your tribe will follow your vibe. They raised their hand. They said, we want more. I said, okay, great. And that's when I shifted into a paid community. And then they told me what they wanted specifically. And I did a kind of like what we call a correlational assessment. I looked at these people and I said, what is it that they have? What is it that they need? They were professionals. They had the education, experience, and expertise. They didn't have the impact, income, or independence. They needed a personal brand and leadership development. And our course, the flagship course, Branded Like a Leader, was built. Mentally, I pre-sold $500,000 before I recorded one word of it.
Well, you're also teaching mindset.
You're
also counseling people.
Leadership development.
You're almost rebuilding confidence.
You got to get over your trauma. So we turned drama and trauma into commas.
I like the naming conventions.
You have to have them. And your
branded.
content comes to you as you go through this introspective process and as you work with people. You can't stay in your own head with it. You've got to get out there. You've got to get around yourself, and you've got to work with people because their input and their feedback informs your process. That's how we came up with the naming conventions.
By the way, folks, if you're liking what you're hearing and you don't know how to get involved because you're not one of those highfalutins that he helps and you don't have much dough at all, I would suggest you join his free community.
That's right.
You get in a free community for the folks.
Of course.
Whether you can talk about it, catch him live, he'll give the value. Don't have to pay for nothing. He just gives it away free.
Absolutely. Free is the best fee.
Shaan, you're a good dude.
Thank you. I greatly appreciate that.
And folks, see, Elon Tremblay just saved the day.
Let's go.
When he popped in here, he just kept saying, Con. Who's the con? People were defending you because they were here the whole time, and he just popped in. That's an issue. Then he just said, okay, maybe he's not a con. I like what he's saying.
Okay, thank you, Elon. I greatly appreciate that. Let's
folks,
go.
That's what it's about, folks. Stick around, open your mind, close your mouth for a moment. That's probably a pretty good tip, to close the mouth and open the mind, and you'll start to realize, holy crap, there's people that have information, and this show gets it from the people who have it to the people who need it. Until next time, keep it real.
That's good.